Rider Magazine Insider Podcast. I'm Greg Jevenstead, Editor-in-Chief at Rider Magazine. Our guest today is Chris Peterman. Chris is the Director of Motorcycles for CFMOTO USA, which manufactures and sells motorcycles, ATVs, and side-by-sides. CFMOTO sold motorcycles in the U.S. from 2012 to 2016, and in 2017, it established a partnership with KTM. For the 2022 model year, CFMOTO has introduced a 7-model lineup of motorcycles to the U.S. The lineup ranges from the 126cc Papio minibike to the 700 CLX Street Scrambler and 700 CLX Sport. We had a chance to test ride all 7 bikes the week before this interview was recorded. We talked to Chris about the history of the CFMOTO brand, review the details and pricing of each model, and share our riding impressions. Stick around for another great episode. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Greg? Good to see you.
Likewise. Well, this is the first week of July. Last week, we were both in Minneapolis. I know you live in Utah and I live in Southern California, but we were both in Minneapolis, which is where CFMOTO's U.S. headquarters is, and got a chance to ride the full lineup of 2022 CFMOTO motorcycles. So some of our listeners and readers may not be as familiar with the CFMOTO brand. I know that CFMOTO had bikes in the U.S., sold a couple of bikes back in like 2012 to 2016. Then there was a hiatus. You guys also have off-road product. Give us a little bit of a background on the CFMOTO company and brand.
Yeah, Greg. So thank you. So CFMOTO, we started in the U.S. in 1989 and started kind of as a distributor for scooters. So back then, scooters, were kind of a big thing, and, ATVs and four-wheelers were kind of taking off, but a little bit different animal back then. So that's where the company started, kind of had some moderate success over the years, but then kind of re-engaged with four-wheel products. So four-wheel ATV, UTV business, as most people know in the U.S. is very, very popular, become very popular over the last 15, 20 years. That's kind of been a mainstay of the power sports business. So, CFMOTO kind of pushed back into that space. And over the last, let's say 10 years, they've really started to build up the dealer network in the U.S. It was kind of an unknown commodity there for a while, but, the guys at the company have worked very hard to push the brand, push the quality, and the dealers now in the U.S. are starting to understand kind of where that kind of lies at. And, during the pandemic, obviously supply chain issues have become an issue. So everybody's been struggling. CFMOTO kind of did a little bit better, I think, in that aspect than a lot of other OEMs did. So we were able to, become kind of top of dealers' mind. And going on in the background, at the same time, we were working on motorcycles. So, you mentioned earlier that we did launch a few models, back 8 years ago. And kind of the decision was made to kind of stop right then. There was very limited success. I think a lot of it with, as you know, and the listeners know, everybody in the U.S. motorcycle market, it's a finicky market. There's a lot of strong players in there, but there's also a lot of ingrained brand loyalty and things like that. So CFMOTO at that point had not yet built up enough customer and or dealer loyalty to kind of push into that kind of finicky motorcycle market. So in the background during COVID, during pandemic, they've been kind of working on that. They did launch motorcycles in other areas of the world, Europe and things like that, Australia, and they've had some success there. Obviously, Europe is a big motorcycle market as well. And, it took a little bit more time to study what the US market looked like, what the model, success would need to be and things like that. And then, so we've kind of landed on the lineup that you and all your colleagues, where everybody was able to enjoy the past week in Minnesota at the test track.
Absolutely. Like I said, last week I got to ride all 7 of the current 2022 models that CFMOTO has available. We'll kind of go through them in sequence. I could just say, right now there's the range sort of runs from a, 126cc mini bike up to 700cc sort of cafe sport bikes. And so you're basically running from the small displacement to mid displacement range. And it's a pretty full lineup. Like I said, 7 models overall. So these bikes you had mentioned have been launched and sold already in some other places like Europe and Australia. So how long have some of these bikes been available in other markets?
At this point, let's say it's probably been close to 18 months, give or take, somewhere in that realm. And, I think it's a good to kind of, then we can get some feedback, kind of what's working and what's not, and I think obviously the European market's very heavily, kind of sport, that kind of base. So I think, they've kind of, it's a very similar market. And I think a lot of times Europe, can be ahead of the US kind of trends and things like that with two wheels. So that's kind of how it works sometimes. So yeah, that's kind of where we landed on the bikes that we did.
We'll also know that European market is much utilitarian as recreational. There's a lot of people that live in cities that there's motorcycles and scooters everywhere, and in crowded urban places. The U.S. market, of course, a little bit different. We're a little bit more spread out. We have some crowded urban cities, but it's definitely much more of a recreational market. People riding on the weekends and having fun. So you mentioned CFMOTO's dealer network. Can you give us an idea about how many dealers you guys have and how many of them would be motorcycle dealers going forward?
Yeah, for overall dealers, we're creeping up on 600 total dealers in the U.S. And just kind of to step back on the motorcycles, we kind of had a target. We announced motorcycles at our dealer meeting in October. We announced the lineup, and we also to them, we announced kind of our plan at that point. With motorcycles, not everybody can sell motorcycles. There's a lot of guys that can sell four-wheel motorcycles. It's a little bit more difficult depending on geography and kind of background and things like that. So our target at the end of year one was 150 dealers, U.S. motorcycle dealers and we would obviously, they're also CFMOTO dealers for four-wheel right now. So, and then we had a target after that of the second year of 250. So we're kind of progressing. We're taking our time. We want to make sure that, if we can't, depending upon supply and things like that, depending on how we look at the different markets, we want to make sure we take our time and ease into the market, kind of a slow burn with motorcycles being as finicky as it is and things like that. So, we figure by the end of this year, we'll be close to 300 dealers for US. And right now it's more of we're trying to be very selective on how we approach the market and the dealer network.
Sure. Now the 2022 models, you said you announced them in October of 2021 at your annual dealer meeting. So are some of these motorcycles currently available at some of your dealers? When did availability start?
Yeah, availability started in April. We were shooting for earlier than that. Obviously, most places, spring riding season starts a little bit earlier. We kind of, I don't want to say missed the mark, but, with COVID and shipping situations, logistics, we did come in a little bit late, but still April was a pretty good timing. It was close to what we wanted to be. So yes, at all of our dealers right now, all these models are available. We have retail. Retail has been very strong. So we are retailing through some stuff, and we are actually in the process of replenishing our dealers at this point. We're also in the process of providing units to our second wave of dealers that we're setting up in the U.S. right now.
Sure. Well, I know during the pandemic, that has created a lot of disruptions in a lot of ways, but I know a lot of motorcycle dealerships have had the good fortune of sort of selling out their inventory, but then at the same time, they have the challenges of people that want to come in and buy or order bikes that they may not be available. And I know the used market's really strong. So, well, let's get into the bikes. Like I said, I had a chance to ride all 7 of these bikes. I rode an 8th bike that we can't talk about until later, but the 7 bikes. So we'll kind of start from smallest to largest. So the Papio is a 126cc air-cooled single mini bike. It retails for $29.99. That is a bike that sort of would compete with something like the Honda Grom, the Kawasaki Z125 Pro. So these are very popular bikes that are street legal. They're affordable. You call them play bike in some ways, but they're great little knock around machines. I think one of the unique things about the Papio is that it has a 6-speed transmission. I know the Grom used to have a 4-speed. They just went to a 5-speed. So when I got a chance to ride it, even though I'm over 200 pounds and look pretty big on a bike like that, I was able to get up to, I think, 62 miles per hour on the test track.
Yeah, I thought you looked pretty good, actually. You look pretty smooth. You look pretty smooth riding around there. So with the Papio and that small kind of little street fighter bike, that's become so popular over the last, let's call it, it must be 10 years now, I guess, close to that now with the Grom and the Kawasaki after that. I think we kind of targeted that into that category. Obviously everything's, kind of in there as a price point, and then you kind of take what you have and style it in your own direction. Obviously there's Grom gangs all over Southern California. When I used to live there's 50 guys riding around, and Cowie's done the same thing, and they've kind of been battling back and forth with sales. And we kind of just saw that as an opportunity. You try not to copy anybody, but at the same time, there's a measure of success that you kind of have to look at and say, okay, there's a market for this. And, that price point between 3 and 4 with those guys, and especially, with gas price in cities like you kind of, Southern California, it's all jammed up down there, and there's traffic everywhere, and a lot of other cities too. It's a nice little, inexpensive way of getting around. Plus you can customize it and things like that. So, and, we kind of, if you're going to do something, we try to make sure we do the ride without compromises, our slogan. So, okay, you look at theirs, everybody's got a 5-speed. So, okay, let's put a 6-speed in it. And okay, is that overkill on something a little small like that? Maybe, but you know what? Hey, we can stand on that and say, hey, we got a 6-speed. So it's just maybe offer the customers just just a little bit different styling, a little bit different colors. There's wild colors in that group, but just, we felt that there was an opportunity. And from a retail standpoint, it's kind of, we were a little bit late on delivery of Papio to the dealers, but it's just exploded with retail. So it seems like it's a good price point for us. And we're very close on price to the Japanese guys in that. But we feel like, I don't think there's a huge gap there. So right. It's been successful.
Well, I know for most of your lineup, the prices are very competitive. There may be competitive models from some of the Japanese manufacturers, that you guys typically are more affordable than those bikes. So in the case of the Papio, I think I think the Grom I don't know the retail price off the top of my head, but I think it's probably closer to $4,000. So you guys are quite a bit lower than theirs. The interesting thing about the 6-speed is when I last tested a Grom, I just had this kooky idea of doing a small bore saddle sore. So basically trying to ride 1,000 miles in 24 hours on one of these little bikes. Now, again, as big as I am on that bike, I'm a lot of wind resistance and weight. But even with the 5-speed on the Grom, top speed I didn't think the math would work for me. So like in literally being able to ride a consistent speed, because on a small bike like that, 125cc, they're not legal on freeways, at least not here in California. So to be able to ride, a route is, pretty much full 24 hours and average the speed. I think you have to average 42 miles an hour, if I'm not mistaken, for a solid 24 hours. So since you're going to have stops, you're going to have refueling, a few things like that, your average moving speed's got to be 55 or so. And I didn't think I could make it work with a Grom, but with a 6-speed on the Papio, I was able to get my hands on one, maybe do a little bit of math. I might see if that's a possibility, but that'd be one heck of an endurance test.
Yeah, I read that you were talking about doing that, and I think you might have to get out of Southern California. I don't know if you could average 55 miles an hour around Southern California.
Yeah, I would really have to start away from, go inland where there's some of the state highways that are not freeways, and where they're kind of, basically in the Mojave Desert or something like that, where it's wide open spaces, don't have much traffic, don't have many reasons to stop. And so routing is a challenge. That's part of the deal. It's like, not only it would be physically challenging to do the whole 24 hours, but to figure out it's a routing challenge. Because if you can, the one time I did a saddle sore before, I did it on a BMW 800 and I just basically rode the I-5 almost the whole way. And that was easy because it was a big enough bike, had a big tank and all of that stuff. So part of it is a small gas tank, small displacement, small average speed, not being able to be on the freeway. So creates a bit of a challenge.
I can't wait for you to try this if we can get this logistically figured out. I'm excited. Maybe we need to get some guys out there to get some shots of you and do some other stuff too. I think we need to make this into a 24-hour event.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, let's talk about it, because it's one of those harebrained ideas that if I wouldn't want to do it if I couldn't pull it off. I think I can probably endure 24 hours of whatever I've got to endure. It's just knowing that mathematically with the gearing and so forth. Certainly, if I were to put a lighter rider on the bike, and subject them to the torture, it might be a little bit easier. But I figure if it's my idea, I should sort of be the one that has to bear the 24 hours of endurance.
Yeah, what fun is that if you put somebody else?
I know, exactly. So the Papio 126 cc's, we move up to the next two models. You've got two 300s. There's the 300 NK, which is the naked bike, and then you've got the 300 SS, which is a sport bike with a full fairing. They're both powered by a 292 cc liquid cooled dual overhead can single. The 300 NK naked bike retails for $39.99 and the 300 SS is $42.99. Again, rode both of these bikes. Again, I'm a little bit at 6 foot and over 200 pounds. I'm a little bit large for those bikes myself, but they fit in terms of, I didn't feel cramped necessarily. It's just that the amount of power that they produce is, for somebody my size, it's sort of like dragging a trailer or something. But narrow bikes, very easy to handle. Again, in terms of some of the features that you wouldn't expect to see on bikes in the 300 range, standard ABS, LED lighting. You guys have a TFT display. There's even Bluetooth connectivity with your CFMOTO app. And then their 6-speed transmission has a slip and assist clutch. So again, these bikes are really aimed at sort of maybe an entry-level rider, or somebody who wants a light, very fuel efficient commuter bike. So tell us a little bit about the 300s.
Yeah. So with the 300s, kind of, back to the development process and, kind of learning what you can from the industry. And, ABS is huge in that category because MSF, everybody goes through MSF now at this point, and MSF is a very big advocate of ABS on bikes. And sure, it makes sense. You run off the road into gravel or you get wet or whatever, ABS is sure you need to have that. So especially in that entry-level bike gives that entry-level consumer that confidence to kind of get over the hump of, being a new rider and things like that. So, and then then kind of back to the ride without compromise thing again, the slipper clutch, that's kind of one of those things that's like, okay, most people don't understand what a slipper clutch does and kind of the intricacies of how that helps you ride coming into turns, stopping, and so forth. So, and that also kind of the 300 can kind of morph into race bikes and things like that. So that's kind of, where all that kind of leads to. And then the meat of the market, obviously there's so much volume in that 300 category. Kawasaki, obviously they moved up to a 400, the Yamaha R3s in there and things like that, CBR 300. So there's just a lot of sales in that market. And also that consumer is usually, price conscious. Obviously they don't want to spend, they're kind of new to the market or whatever. They don't want to spend $10,000 on a motorcycle. So that's kind of where this comes in at. And, studying the market again, and we kind of took, this is a little bit different. And I'll talk about this with kind of each bike we go through. I don't want to go over too many times, but everything we have other than the Papio comes with 2-year factory warranties. So every other manufacturer, provided there's some, obviously some European guys that come with extended warranties, but most of the, the Japanese are all 1-year warranty, unlimited miles. So we're 2-year unlimited miles. So that's back to kind of, we wanted to give the U.S. motorcycle consumer just a little bit more peace of mind to try a different brand. So that's kind of all these things kind of fold up into that 300 as to, why we came in with those. Plus, I think we kind of offer, and it's kind of, unique in that market, is styling and color. We have a little bit different color scheme. We're not the greens and the reds and the blues. So a little bit different, and the SS has been super popular. So is the NK. They're our top sellers right now. So just, I think people in that bracket are a little bit, maybe not so brand loyal and willing to kind of take on to try something different.
Well, and the interesting thing about these smaller bikes, especially, a naked bike, which, doesn't have the fairing. Some people are concerned about having fairing plastic that, if they do have a mistake, and hey, if you're a new rider, if you're going to make a mistake, that's when you're likely going to make it in your first couple of years. But other people some people like the sporty look of having a full fairing. And in that category, I know that, in years past, like the bikes the styling was a little bit sort of lame or pedestrian, whereas the bigger 600 sport bikes and 1,000cc sport bikes had the cool aggressive styling. And I know that in recent years, these smaller sport bikes have the aggressive styling that people want if they're not yet ready, either because of their budget or their skill level to move up to a 600 or something like that. So they don't feel like they're getting kind of gypped on cool styling, the aggressive styling in that 300 category. I agree with you 100% that the ABS is absolutely a huge plus for motorcycles in this category where, hey, the brakes and the power may not be, as strong or as powerful as you would think of with larger bikes, but man, anybody can make a mistake at any time. If you're a new rider, somebody pulls out in front of you. You mentioned gravel, you mentioned, wet roads or something if you can learn to ride and get stopped in an emergency before ABS kicks in, that's great, but not everybody has that luxury. And in the moment, things can be really intense. So that is, ABS is a huge plus on any motorcycle so that you've got it from your 300s on up. And then the slipper clutch, like you said, aggressive downshifts may not be something that some newer riders are doing, but sometimes you make a mistake, you stomp on that shift lever without knowing it, or, and then with the assist component, it just makes it for a nice light clutch pull, and people can get used to all of the coordination that's involved, again, if they're newer riders. But honestly, I know people that have been riders for 20, 30 years that buy smaller bikes like these. They make great commuters. They make great knockaround bikes. You're like, hey, I just don't want a big heavy bike. I just want to go out and play around and have some fun. And so,
yeah, and we were at the track, and of all the bikes I rode on the track, I would say my favorite, I didn't get to ride the SS, but the NK was definitely, you can just have a lot of fun with it. I know you rode it, and it's just, again, the power and the things like that, but it's just a fun bike to ride around, and it's just, you can kind of do what you want with it. And it's, from an enjoyment, just a pure fun factor. It's just a blast, it's kind of one of those bikes.
Well, and like you said, if you're an experienced rider, a bike like this is great. It's easy to find what its limits are, and it's not going to bite you, whereas motorcycles don't have to be very large before they have or a performance envelope that might exceed, somebody's skill level, or it just doesn't leave much margin for error. For a bike like this, there's that saying of like, it's more fun to ride a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. A lower power bike, a lighter power bike, to really get out there and just know that, hey, 45 miles an hour feels like, 85 on some other bike. It's like you're well within the speed limit, you're well within your skill level, and it can, like I said, be a lot of fun.
You're just you're involved in the bike. And that's what makes it fun. You're very involved in the riding, and you just feel like you're part of the bike. Whereas on a bigger bike, sometimes you can feel like you're being taken for a ride, not the other way around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So moving up, we have two models powered by a 649cc liquid cooled school dual overhead cam parallel twin. It's the 650 NK naked bike. So it'd be kind of the big brother of the 300 NK. That retails for $64.99. And then there's the 650 ADV Ventura or Adventura. It has the ADV capitalized like ADV bikes. That's a street style adventure bike, which retails for $67.99. Again, these bikes have some of the same features that the 300s do: standard ABS, LED lighting, TFT display with Bluetooth connectivity to the CFMOTO app. These bikes have the J1 disc brakes. Is that how you pronounce that?
J1.
J1 disc brakes. Pirelli Angel GT Sport Touring tires. Those are great tires. Again, 6-speed transmission with a slip and assist clutch. Now, again, the 650 NK is the naked bike, but the AD Ventura, how do you pronounce it?
I say 650 ADV, but internally it's 650 Adventura.
Adventura, okay. Now that, again, being a street style adventure bike, it comes standard with shad side cases that are lockable and removable, and it also has an adjustable windscreen. So these are the bikes that sort of my size, they sort of fit me. I love middleweight motorcycles. So the 650 naked bike, we were on a closed test track for testing all these motorcycles. It wasn't a racetrack. It was more of a training facility. So we were dealing with tar snakes and sort of, rough pavement in some places. We even dealt with some wet pavement after a thunderstorm came through. There was a tight infield course where we could really get some tight maneuvering experience. But these bikes also were very fun to ride, very manageable in their power delivery, very smooth. So yeah, tell us about the 650 bikes.
Yeah, so the 650 engine has been around the longest at CFMOTO. It's been tried and tested for a long time at CFMOTO and in various things. So that's the one that we've had for a while. We've kind of, back to the research, you kind of look at, the success in those categories with naked, MT-07, MT-09, all the, things like that, and kind of say, okay, this is a very successful piece right here. So the 650, and again, you want to make the naked bike have some bright colors. It's got bright color wheels and, things like that. So, and we spent a lot of time just, with the NK, with the KYB front and rear. So the suspension's good, it's adjustable and things like that for that little kind of next step in rider evolution from the 300. And then to the ADV, I actually have that bike myself right now. And I know that you personally spent some miles on one of our ADVs. So it'd be good to hear a little bit from your feedback too. But I have that 650 ADV. I've put a couple hundred miles on it. The ergonomics for me are really, I like that type of bike. I own several Tracer GTs and things like that. So I like that kind of bike. I like that ergonomics, that seating position. I messed around with the bags a little bit. I was blown away by the ease of the bags. Sometimes bags can be kind of intimidating, getting them on, getting them off, things like this is probably one of the easiest bags that I've been able to use. So, and we're also too, we will offer or offering a top case for that as well. I think we had one there at the event with the rack and things like that. So all 3 sets of luggage. But for me, the power is in that medium range. The seat, I'm sure you can probably talk about the seat. I would really like the seat and the handling of the bike, kind of just the whole thing, the adjustable windscreen. So both of those are bikes that I like personally and that I've owned in several categories. So I think, that 650 Adventura, you'll kind of see as we, kind of go through the process over the next few years, that is kind of the beginning of the start of the Adventura kind of, process and kind of what we're looking for from a future product lineup and things like that. So both those bikes kind of designed to have really nice pieces on them, really nice components, but also stay in that lower under $7 price range. And that's kind of the key. We're trying to, in those bikes, we're trying to stay under $7.
Right. Well, I know that the bikes that you sold briefly in the US before were both 650. So they were powered by an earlier version of this engine. Yeah, I rode both bikes. I spent the most amount of time on the Adventura, on the track. Both of them are fun, easy to handle. But then after our full lineup test day, you guys gave us the key to whatever bike we wanted to spend a day with. And I was going to be in town for the next couple of days. So I rode the Adventura from Minneapolis up to Duluth, which is a couple hours north. It's about 150 miles north of Minneapolis. I went to go visit Airstitch, so I was on the freeway the entire time on I-35. It was very smooth, very steady. There was a little bit of rain, a little bit of crosswind, had good wind protection because you've got a windscreen that is adjustable. I think it's about 1.5 inches. It'll go up, but you also got some small wind deflectors on the sides, the lower edges of the windscreen, which part the wind quite nicely. The seating position, those adventure style motorcycles where you have more of an upright seating position, you got good leg room, but not too tall. I don't recall the seat height specifically, but it's not too tall of a seat height. And yeah, so it was great. I put 350 miles on it in one day, got to do a little bit of twisty riding, and was even on a little bit of gravel. I know it's got street tires on it, but it's got ABS. It was a fun bike. So that of course would compete with something like a Kawasaki Versus 650. And the interesting thing, the Versus 650 LT, which comes with standard bags, I think retails for $99.99. So you guys are $67.99. You're at least a couple of grand less. And if you went down the spec sheet, they're very similar. I think the only thing that the Kawasaki has that the Adventura doesn't is traction control. But for a $2,000, $2,200 price delta, that's a huge bargain.
Yeah, the bags are is kind of what bumps everything up there in price, and ours comes standard with the bag. So yeah, it's a huge kind of price discrepancy there, and that's kind of where we're targeting into that market. I think that customer, that ATV customer, is even a little bit more finicky than the typical US. Kind of one step higher on that kind of, hey, here's one that I want in a certain bike type customer. So we try to kind of push up into that, but also knowing that we with brand recognition being lower, obviously, on motorcycle side than let's say a Cowie or a Ducati or things like that. We also needed to make sure that our price was very price sensitive to that customer, wanting to get in with that commuter bike, a little less maybe enthusiast, a little more commuter, price conscious and things like that. So that's kind of where we ended with the price on those bikes.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the saddlebags, that adds its versatility and touring capability. I know for some people are commuters, at least in California, because we can lane split. A lot of times people will put on the top trunk and take the saddlebags off, so you're a little bit narrower. But yeah, I mean, it's 649 cc's, so that's a great fuel efficient bike. It's got the power people need to be in regular commuting traffic, or or it can go at whatever speed you're comfortable with, but at the same time it's not going to eat up gas. Right now gas prices are high everywhere, so fuel efficiency is going to be a bigger factor in people's purchase decisions than maybe it was a year or two ago.
Yeah, we feel especially with the 650 lineup, both those, the NK and the ATV with the bags and things like that, and like you kind of mentioned, the trunk, we feel like the commuter is definitely going to be one of our highest take rates on the customers with that.
Absolutely. So, Chris, the last two models in the 2022 lineup that we got a chance to ride last week, got the 700 CLX, which retails for $64.99, and the 700 CLX Sport, which retails for $69.99. Both of them are powered by a 693cc liquid-cooled dual overhead cam parallel twin. These are the higher-end bikes compared to the others in terms of they make more power, but these bikes have throttle by wire with both eco and sport modes. They have standard cruise control. Like the other bikes, they've got standard ABS, LED lighting, TFT display. In terms of suspension, both of them have KYB suspension with fully adjustable fork, preload and rebound adjustable shock. There's some specification difference on the CLX X and then the Sport. The standard bike has the J1 disc brakes with Pirelli MT60 semi-knobby tires. And then the Sport has the high-end Brembo Stylema monoblock front calipers and Maxxis Supermax ST tires. Both of these bikes, like the others, have a 6-speed transmission with slip-a-switch clutch. So these are the fun bikes. These are the bikes that, we were on this test track and you guys like, hey, this isn't a race. We're here to just get a test ride. But as you know, you get, one bike is a ride, two bikes is a race. And we were chasing each other around the track on those bikes as much as we could. They were an absolute blast.
Yeah, we always mention that this isn't a race, but I'm pretty sure that I saw several of you guys racing. So it's hard not to be competitive on a track like that. So no, these are kind of what we would consider flagship models and this is kind of CFMOTO's kind of just launch into those flagship models, where it's not really a similar trend or anything like that. Okay, where do you categorize these things? So starting with the CLX, we call that a neo retro scrambler. And, kind of when I started to listen to what they were talking about, the Japanese/Asian success with scrambler bikes has been very, very limited. It doesn't have the same flair that a Ducati or a European bike does, or Triumph or things like that. So I was a little bit kind of, I don't want to say concerned, but just kind of wondering where that market was going, and, got to spend some time on the bike, seen it in person, kind of watching retail right now. And I've been, I don't want to say proven wrong, but I've been pleasantly surprised about how that bike kind of has, kind of taken off. And so in regards, it's kind of that, okay, it doesn't look quite like a normal, MT or Kawasaki or Honda. It kind of has this different look to it. It kind of looks like a Ducati, but it kind of doesn't, has good performance. So I know you guys got to spend some time on the track on that. The tires are obviously a little bit different. The sound of it has a little bit different sound. So, we're kind of with that CLX kind of targeting that kind of, Street Fighter-esque type look. And I actually have one of those bikes myself right now and got to spend some time on it with the cruise control and things like that. And it's just, I've been very pleasantly surprised about the performance and just the overall bike, the feel and how well it's put together and things like that. So the CLX has definitely been good for us. Moving over to the Sport with the clip-ons, that one actually has been very strong. I think people have just been kind of itching for something kind of not in that, typical Street Fighter category. And, and they say most average people, they're like, okay, Brembos, okay, that sounds good, but they don't really, there's a grasp of, okay, that's a very nice break on there and type of thing. So, we've had that kind of push into that. This is the higher end. This is the $7,000. This is where people start to, kind of, okay, what's the payment type of thing. So we've been able to have a lot of success in that area because, I think a lot of our dealers, they've had, they believe in the brand. And when you get a dealer to believe in the brand, they can sell that stuff for you. So those two flagship models have been very, very popular so far for us.
Well, I mean, in this price category, getting a fully adjustable KYB fork, preload and rebound adjustable KYB shock, very good high quality tires, high quality brakes. I mean, those are the sorts of things that sometimes people have to pay quite a bit more for to get on a bike. Yet styling wise, I think these bikes are a lot of fun. They're quite unique and an absolute hoot to ride. I spent more time on the Sport. I think once I got on that and turned a couple of laps, it's got, even though it's only 500 cc's more than the 650s, man, especially in sport mode, it had a real snap to it, and throttle response where it was just an absolute blast. And so, yeah, that's why some of us couldn't help but chase each other and scraping some foot pegs and scuffing some boots and stuff. They were a blast. So, these are bikes that, again, they could be commuter bikes. They could be, whatever. They're kind of well-rounded sort of sport standards. I mean, like you said, one's got, a tubular handlebar, one's got clip-ons, they've got different tires, somewhat different styling. So basically people can, choose one bike that appeals to them more than the other. Maybe they want the high-end Brembo brakes on the Sport, sportier tires or something like that. But an absolute blast. They were kind of really exceeded my expectations. I didn't know what to expect from them, but from a 700, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, it's going to have a little bit of zip, but especially the Sport, man, I was surprised at how lively that bike was.
Yeah, there's a huge difference in those two between the eco mode and the sport mode. It really wakes up in the sport mode. Not to say that the eco mode isn't fun too, but there's definitely a big gap between the two. And from a standpoint of dealers, we've had more dealers reach out to our sales guys to get more sports of any bike that we've had right now. So to push it to our highest level, highest price model that is having that kind of success. Obviously, we feel like that's kind of our step into the next level of some bikes that we can't talk about and things like that for a little bit. But I think that's kind of where we're breaking that ground for our brand at that $7,000 mark. And, our goal isn't to sell more expensive bikes. It's just to sell stuff that we think that customers need, that they want to fill the gaps for customers. So, and everything's, how things go, everything's expensive. So we're trying to just make sure that we can give our customers as much as we can for a really good price. And I think, just those two models in general have kind of proven to us that there's some dealer and some customer loyalty out there for our product, and we're pretty happy about it.
Yeah, that's great. Like I said, not just the throttle response, but the exhaust note of these bikes. They've got these really cool stubby exhausts that, the styling's unique. And the thing about, a lot of motorcyclists in the United States is, if you're a young buyer, maybe a motorcycle may be your only vehicle. But a lot of us that, we've got normal lives, we've, out of school, we've got jobs, we've got families, you've got your grocery getter, you got your pickup truck or your family car or something, and a motorcycle is something that might be what you ride on the weekends or you commute a little bit on. And oftentimes you have to fit that into the household budget, along with everything else. So these days, everything's more expensive. So having a price point on some of these motorcycles, you can get a lot of bike, not feel like you're making compromises or giving up anything, but it's a bike that you can work into your household budget. Makes a lot of sense. Like everybody in this industry wants to sell more bikes. We want more people on bikes. We want more bikes being sold. We want more helmets and jackets and everything else being sold. It's good for all of us. So
yeah, we want to make sure, it's gas prices. You can't get away from gas prices. It's everywhere. It's in the news. It's on social media. It's in your face every time you drive down the street. So, that's a big thing. And mean, gas prices traditionally help motorcycle sales. People can justify that. And it's, so even if there's a bike that, hey, I can get this bike and it's this much versus this bike. So, that's a huge thing for us. But you're right. The world has kind of changed, and, motorcycles have kind of went through this evolution, and the buyers have went through evolution. And I think we've kind of reached a point right now where there's a whole new group of buyers. There's that electric bike people, and there's, these new people that aren't so brand loyal, like people like me and like you are. I've kind of, when I've been brand loyal to the different people over the years and things like that. So I think it's been a great time for us to try and just capture that new person, that new buyer, that new rider, and get in at the right time. And gas prices obviously hurts four-wheel business, but it's good for two-wheel business. So, everybody kind of just, when you can get 100 miles to a gallon or 50 miles to a gallon, whatever it is, it just kind of sometimes it makes sense. And you're right. You can kind of work that into a family budget a lot more easy at that point. Plus, the COVID pandemic kind of helped power sports. Everybody got outdoors. So that's been great for the business and things like that. And it also helped motorcycles, and it seems to be continuing. So with four and for two wheels. So we're excited about the possibility of business.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you kind of going over the background of CFMOTO and discussing some of these bikes. I mean, like I say, you guys are coming out with a pretty full lineup right out of the gate, 7 models. There's going to be more coming down the line. So I'll have a review, since I got a chance to ride all 7 of these bikes. I'll have a review be on ridermagazine.com. It'll be in the next issue of Rider as well. It'll probably be in the September issue, I think, but an overview of all of these bikes, specs and details, and some riding photos. And then I'll have a little bit more of an in-depth impression of the 650 Adventura, since I got to spend a full day on that in addition to time on the track. We'll have links in the show notes to CFMOTO's, website, social channels. And then once my review's up, we'll make sure we have a link to that on the website. So Chris, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. We really appreciate you guys coming out to the track and spending a lot of time on the bikes, giving us your honest opinion. And I appreciate the time with this interview as well. And let us know when you're ready to do the Iron Butt Papio, and we'll step up to the plate for that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that'll be awesome. So like I said, we'll discuss, see if we can get a Papio and see if that thing will do 1,000 miles in 24 hours. So for the Rider Magazine podcast, I'm Greg Drevenstedt. Thanks for listening, and keep the rubber side down.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed listening to the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast, please subscribe, leave us a positive rating, and tell your friends. We also encourage you to visit ridermagazine.com, where you can get the latest in motorcycle news and reviews and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You can also subscribe to print and digital editions of Rider Magazine, which is published 12 times a year. Thanks again for listening.